title, The Mascot Costume That Made Me Quit My Night Job? You'd think the worst part of my night shift guarding a defunct toy company's warehouse was the crushing loneliness. Honestly, my only companion was a row of 8 flickering security monitors. And for months, the most exciting thing I saw was a mouse skittering across the floor. The place was a tomb, a silent museum of forgotten childhoods. But one night, I saw something move in the shadows. And what I witnessed on that screen is why I abandoned my post before dawn and never looked back. Some images you can't delete. They just get seared into your memory, playing on a loop for the rest of your life. This is the story of my loop. Section 1. The soul-crushing normalcy. The warehouse belonged to Playtime Pals Toy Co., a cheerful name for a place that was anything but. It was a massive, windowless box of concrete and steel, sitting abandoned off a rural county road. It was so far from town that the darkness outside felt absolute. The only other light for miles was a single blinking radio tower on a distant hill. My shift was 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. ESA. The property manager, a gruff man named Henderson, would give me a set of keys, point to the logbook, and offer a tired nod before his taillights vanished into the night, leaving me in total isolation. The silence that followed his departure was always deafening. My job was incredibly simple, so simple it hurt. The first hour consisted of a patrol. I'd walk the vast, cavernous aisles, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, the sound of my own footsteps echoing unnervingly. The rows were stacked high with dusty brown boxes, all bearing the faded, smiling logo of the company. The air inside had a strange, cloying smell, a mix of old cardboard, decaying plastic, and the faint, sweet scent of something I couldn't place. It felt like walking through the graveyard of a million happy memories. It's strange what a company leaves behind defective dolls, unsold board games, an entire generation of joy left to rot. After the patrol, I was confined to a small, brightly lit security office that felt like a fishbowl. My entire existence was reduced to that desk and the 8 grainy, black and white monitors. Most of the cameras were old, providing a blurry, static-filled view of the silent warehouse. I'd watch the hours tick by, drinking lukewarm coffee and reading old magazines left by previous guards. It was a job designed to fight off sleep and nothing else. I had convinced myself it was perfect. No people, no stress, just silence. I thought the silence was a comfort. I was wrong. The silence was just waiting. Section 2. The night it happened, the night it all went wrong, started like every other. It was a Thursday in early November, with a cold, persistent wind rattling the metal siding of the building. I'd just completed my patrol, every access point secure, every corridor empty. I settled into my squeaky office chair, the low drone of the monitors the only sound in my world. It was about 3:30 a.m. Managing a subtle shift on screen 4 drew my gaze. This camera monitored the far northeast corner, an area designated for promotional materials and displays. I almost dismissed it as a shadow from the wind shaking the building, a common enough occurrence. But this was different. Something about the shape was wrong. I leaned closer to the monitor, my brow furrowed. Lying in a heap on the concrete floor was the old company mascot costume, Barnaby Bear. It was a life-sized suit made of thick brown felt with a permanently cheerful plastic face. I'd seen it on my patrol, just a sad pile of fabric and limbs against a shelving unit. It looked like a bearskin rug, but now it didn't look like a pile anymore. It looked assembled. My first thought was a squatter. Maybe someone broke in. I grabbed the logbook, my hands suddenly clammy, and checked my patrol notes. Aisle 9, knee corner. All clear. Mascot costume on floor. I had seen it with my own eyes less than 2 hours ago. It was a heap. A nervous energy started buzzing under my skin. I rewound the digital recorder, my finger drumming on the desk. I watched the last hour of footage. Nothing. Just the empty, static-hazed corner. Then, at exactly 3:28 a mage flickers. For a single frame, the costume is a pile, and in the next, it's sitting upright. No one comes in, no one touches it. It just changes. On the live feed, there it was. Barnaby Bear, sitting up on its own, leaning against the metal shelves. Section 3. The Shape in the Darkness. I stared at the screen, a cold, sharp fear piercing through my boredom. This wasn't a prank. This was impossible. My company handbook said to call Henderson in any unusual circumstance. But what would I tell him? The mascot costume sat up? He'd fire me for being all jacked up drunk or crazy. So I just sat there like a dork paralyzed, watching the figure on the monitor, feeling its presence through the screen. The camera in that corner was old, and a single bare bulb overhead cast deep, distorted shadows. The mascot costume was mostly a dark shape, but the round ears and the curve of its head were unmistakable. It was sitting with its legs splayed out, its stuffed arms limp at its sides. Its head was tilted down, its painted smile aimed at the floor. My blood felt like ice in my veins. I replayed it in my mind. I saw it on patrol. It was a pile, a discarded costume. It couldn't be sitting up. It just couldn't. I tried to reason with myself, to find a logical out. Maybe the stuffing settled. Maybe a draft pushed it up. But it was too neat, too deliberate. It was sitting up like a person. I wanted to run, to just get up and leave, and pretend none of this happened. But I was frozen in place, my eyes locked on that monitor. I had to know. I had to be sure. And then it moved. This is nuts. The head lifted. It was a slow, sickeningly smooth motion. The round, furry head tilted upwards, the fixed plastic smile coming into view. It rose until the two big, painted, lifeless eyes were staring directly into the camera lens. Staring directly at me. The smile hadn't changed, of course, but now it looked utterly monstrous. I could see the hollow blackness behind the eye holes. There was nothing inside. It was an empty suit. But it had moved. It had looked right at me. That's when my sanity fractured. That single, impossible movement broke my reality. I was no longer a security guard. I was the subject of an unholy attention. The feeling of being watched was overwhelming, and it wasn't just in my head. It was coming from that screen. That empty costume wasn't empty. I knew it in my soul. I didn't yell. I didn't make a peep. I shot out of my chair so fast it slammed backward into the wall. I left my half-read magazine and my thermos. I only grabbed my phone and keys. I didn't sign the logbook. I didn't even lock the office door. I burst out into the windy darkness, scrambled into my car, and tore out of that property, spraying gravel behind me. I floored it, refusing to look in my rearview mirror, terrified I'd see Barnaby Bear's smiling face in the back seat. Conclusion: I never went back. I drove until the sun came up and called Henderson from a diner 50 miles away. I told him I quit, effective immediately. He grumbled, but he didn't sound surprised. And I didn't care anyways. Maybe I wasn't the first guard to flee that place in the middle of the night. I have no explanation for what I saw. Was it a hallucination brought on by sleep deprivation? An incredibly elaborate prank? I don't know. But the logic-defying horror of that moment, the silent, deliberate way that had lifted to look at me, it follows me. That image is permanently burned into my mind. A grainy, black and white feed of an empty suit coming to life, its dead eyes finding mine in the dark. It's a terrifying reminder that some things are better left forgotten in the dark. So if you've ever had a job that took you to a lonely place and showed you something that shouldn't exist, let me know in the comments. I want to hear your story. And for more stories that explore the darkness on the edge of town, make sure to like and subscribe. You never know what's really watching you from the shadows.